Welcome back. This is Prospects Worldwide. Thanks for tuning in once more. You know what we're doing. We're breaking down the wild 2020 MLB Draft division by division. We've covered half the draft so far, knocking out the AL East, NL East, and AL Central, scouting each one of their standout draft picks. Now we go to the NL Central, where it's anyone's division to win for the next few years. Today I'm your host, Jon Giles, and this is Prospects Worldwide. I am glad to say, after one long episode off, the family is back together. I am joined by the entire crew once again, and as always, first up, the owner of Prospects Worldwide, the Viceroy of Velo, Jake Tillinghast. Jake, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. How are you?
Doing well. How's that nickname?
Another one, another day.
I got a whole list of them now, man. That's all I did yesterday. I just made a list. I got 76 of them. Like I said, the whole crew is back. So that means I've got Zack Wild Thing Silverman, and Chris wasn't here last week to get a nickname, Clegg. How are y'all doing today?
We're good. Are we sticking with Wild Thing? Is that my fifth grade nickname coming back?
It stuck last time. You shouldn't have worn those glasses.
What's my nickname?
That's what this podcast is about, Chris.
Figuring that out.
We're actually not talking about the NL Central. We're talking about your nickname. No, we are talking about the NL Central. We'll figure out your nickname later. And I'd actually love to continue chatting, but last time we went a little long, and the NL Central is loaded with picks. So I want to thread the needle today. I want you to give me all the information you can about these prospects, but you get extra points for expedience. So we've got about 30 newcomers to the division. Let's get to know them now, starting with the Pirates selecting Nick Gonzalez. So he's a bat-first infielder who's going to live and die with his offense. He's probably going to land at second. I don't know where he lands on the defensive spectrum. Zack, tell me about Nick Gonzalez. Does he have a defensive spot? Does it matter?
The answer is yes and no. He has a spot. It'll be second base, maybe the outfield. Doesn't really matter because the kid absolutely rakes, and if you can hit, they'll find a spot for you. And I don't think there's anybody currently on the Pirates that is standing in his way in terms of anything in terms of playing time.
So no Adam Frazier? It doesn't matter that Frazier's their three-hole?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Gonzalez is really good. He's got lightning quick hands at the plate. Honestly, probably some of the best in the class. He played in a weak conference, so some people have some skeptical skeptics on him going forward. But I mean, honestly, I really like the pick. I think back in the first episode, me and Chris were talking about you were looking at the Orioles, looking at him to take him at number 2, but obviously they didn't, and they went with Kierstad. But yeah, like he really produces a lot of power from the right side. He played in the hitter's box, obviously, in New Mexico State, obviously, like I said, against some weak conferences. But I would be a little wary about the power going forward just for the fact that he plays in such a weak park for right-handed hitting. But other than that, I really like the profile offensively. And yeah.
Yeah, I love the hit tool here. Could grow into some power there. Seen a lot of comps to like Keston Hiura, which is really intriguing. That would be probably like a high-end comp. But, man, I love the floor. It's very high floor, great hit tool. Love the pick here.
Personally, I'm going to have to say I think Gonzalez is better than Heston Kjerstad. I absolutely love this bat. He has been playing in a weaker conference at altitude, but if you look at the numbers since the start of his sophomore year, he's hitting .435 with 28 home runs and an on-base percentage way over 500. You don't do that by accident, but just to prove it, he went to the Cape Cod League and won the MVP there against real pitching in a real park. So I have absolutely no doubts about Gonzalez's bat. Just watching him hit is just kind of a thing of beauty. The way he tracks pitches out of the hand, the way he executes on every single swing. He sees the pitch up, he sees the pitch down, he sees the breaking ball, he sees everything, and he knows exactly what he wants to do with it. It's just a thing of beauty to watch him execute every single at-bat. It's a line drive bat that also produces power just because he finds the barrel so often. He's kind of a smaller guy, but just with the way he generates so much explosiveness and so much torque out of his right-handed swing, even though he's a smaller guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he had 20 or more home runs a year. I absolutely love this pick, and I think Pirates fans too. I think he could be every bit as good as Austin Martin.
So you mentioned the Cape stats. I'm looking at them right now. His slash line is 350, 450, 630. He goes back to New Mexico State for the senior year. Granted, short season, whatever. 450, 610, 1200. Absolutely. He has a 1765 OPS. The guy is a hitting machine.
My video games would be jealous of those numbers. That he hit 5 home runs in one day in a doubleheader, or like hit 12 home runs in 16 games. It's insane. But the bat's absolutely for real. This kid's fantastic. This is a 20 to 25 home run bat, high on base percentage guy.
So the bat will play. So let's move to the mound. Next up with the 31st overall pick, the Pirates select Carmen Mlodzinski. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. There's a lot of extra consonants in there, but I'm pretty sure it's Mlodzinski. He's got a huge arsenal, probably 5 pitches, but statistically his stuff didn't really blow me away. College career of 8 strikeouts to 4 walks. Is he going to be able to manipulate his pitch sequencing or whatever he needs to do to be effective in the bigs?
I think so. I think this is a pretty safe bet. I wouldn't put too much into those numbers of South Carolina just because, his first year he was a freshman, so that's a freshman in the SEC. I'd kind of discount that. As a sophomore, he broke his foot pretty early into the season, so he didn't really get to pitch as a sophomore either. But he went out onto the Cape, and he was absolutely dominant on the Cape. 43 strikeouts, 5 walks, 34.1 innings, ERA below 2. And what he did out there is he was sitting kind of in the low to mid 90s. He was getting up into the upper 90s, actually. And he was showing potential for 3+ secondary pitches with a slider that he can kind of morph more into a cutter, a curveball, a changeup. And everything was looking really sharp. And then he came back out in the spring, and everything that had 60 and 65 grades now had 50 and 55 grades. The fastball was still up there. He was still kind of low to mid 90s with that fastball, but his breaking balls looked more good. He's got that slider. He can morph it into a cutter, but it was good. It wasn't swing and miss stuff, and he wasn't missing a lot of bats. So that's probably where he settles into going forward. He's probably this kind of number 3, number 4 starter, a ground ball guy who can eat up innings. I think he does. Even when he was kind of down this spring, he had the feel to still pitch effectively. But so I see him as a number 3, number 4 starter.
As a Gamecock fan, I've watched him a good bit. And so, like you said, I think it's a good floor pick. I think he's been above average in college, but not super impressive. The value really got ballooned, I think, from pretty impressive Cape League, put up really good stats there. But he's got a lot to like. Honestly, expect him to go a little earlier in the draft, about the 20s. So the Pirates got a good pick there. I like what he has to offer. Like you said, I think not looking at high end upside, but maybe a 3 or 4 starter. So definitely good potential there.
Yeah, I agree with the potential. He's definitely looking like a 3-4 starter potential, maybe even a 5th, but he's got potential for 3 above average pitches, and he's a sinker baller, not going to really blow people away, but he's got some good stuff, good pitchability. Command, a little bit of command issues, but he's working through them. But got some natural deception in his delivery. He kind of throws a little across his body, makes it kind of tough on right-handers. But I'm a big fan of the pick. Like you said, the Pirates got a good pick here.
So, Chris, real quick, as a South Carolina fan, am I pronouncing that right? Mlodzinski?
Yeah, Carmen Mlodzinski.
All right.
It looks really weird, but somehow you pronounce it that way. Still don't know how.
That's fair. Well, let's move from college to high school. That's where the Pirates went next. They selected California pitcher Jared Jones. In terms of stuff and analytics, his slider is 2,700 plus RPM. He seems to have that advanced high spin rate on multiple pitches. Does he have a higher ceiling than even Mlodzinski?
I would say a higher ceiling just due to him being the prep. He's got some more room to kind of grow. Mlodzinski, like I said, he's kind of growing into we all kind of said he's kind of growing into that 3, 4, maybe 5th starter role. He's not really too overpowering, but Jones has overpowering stuff. Like you said, I don't have the spin rate numbers on him, but he's got some really electric stuff. Everything is really high velocities. Started working the curveball a little more during the quarantine. It was looking pretty nice. In his bullpen, he's started posting a little bit more, and it looked a lot more crisp. It was a little loopy and more or less just kind of just one of those get me overs, stay off my high velocity stuff. Because even his changeup, he's throwing in the high 80s, but he's got really good arm action and a really good rake on his pitches. Fastball is up to 95, 97, touches 99. This kid's just an athlete, honestly. I'm bummed the shutdown happened. I was going to get out to a game. I forgot who they were playing now. It's been a few months, but the first week of shutdown, I was going to get out to a game to see him pitch at La Mirada. It's just about 45 minutes up the road from me, so I was really excited to see him, but unfortunately it never obviously happened. But the kid's got a ton of talent. I'm big on him. There is some high leverage or high effort in his delivery. Some people have concerns of him being in the bullpen in the long run, but I think there's enough athleticism here and kind of pitchability, and he works hard enough to kind of iron stuff out. So I have a lot of faith in him.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy there between the arm strength and the athleticism, and then the fact that he's also 6'1" with a relatively high effort delivery. So it's kind of, you have a lot of starter traits and then a lot of reliever red flags. So it'll be interesting to see him go forward. But I think you hit the nail on the head with just really explosive stuff is what you're buying.
So, okay, I can get down with that. That's a solid high-end pitcher. I like that. Now, the next guy is a really interesting story. Chris, I'll let you touch on this. We're talking about Nick Garcia, 6'4" righty. He doesn't allow any home runs. He strikes out 6 guys for every 1 walk. Is this like a lack of competition thing? He's from D3 Chapman University. Or is he a true player?
Yeah, he looks the part for sure. Like you said, I don't think he got the looks that a lot of the higher end college players did because he was a D3 guy from Chapman. I mean, he blew away the competition. Then again, there's the questions, was it because low end competition? I don't think so. I mean, he's got all the talent in the world. Dan O'Dowd actually compared him to John Smoltz. That's pretty lofty. I think he's first round talent, honestly. And so they got a good pick here. He's got 3 pitches that have a chance to be above average to plus in the fastball, cutter, and slider. The fastball, pretty good heat, hits 97, sits around mid-90s. He's got a nice slider that's in the mid-80s, and the cutter sits about 86 to 88. The command is spotty, but he's a great athlete, and I really think with moving into the system and getting better coaching, he should really improve with time just because of what he's shown and that athletic ability that he has. A lot to like there.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember this guy's really new to pitching. He only started pitching as a sophomore, and he only started starting as a junior. And already, I mean, he's, as you said, he's got those 3 above average to plus pitches, and he can already kind of move between his slider, which has more depth to it, and his cutter, which is, a harder pitch that a little tougher to square up. He doesn't have much of a changeup, but again, he's new to pitching, and the command is already starting to improve. As you said, it's still below average, but everything is trending in the right direction. And I think if this guy either had a full season or if he pitched for a more well-known program, I think we'd be talking about a much, much higher pick here. I think the Pirates are getting really good value at Garcia.
Yeah, that's always the tough thought process is, are these stats legit or are they just fake against, little league comp? If you are able to decipher the true guy through those D3 ranks, you get yourself a gem that no one else sees.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like Zach touched on, he's really new to pitching, so you're not getting one of these guys with X amount of innings on his arm. He's only pitched about a year and a half, 2 years. So, and even this year, he didn't really get a full year in, so he's just been kind of bullpens and stuff. So you got a really fresh arm, and like they touched on, I think there's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of stuff to like in the fastball, the cutter, the slider, and just give him some more time to work in the system and get some pro coaching, and I think he can turn out to a decent pitcher.
Yeah, I don't think the stats even matter. I mean, just forget the stats. Look at the stuff. The stuff is there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. Now the next Pirate I'm particularly fond of because he played his college career right down the road from me at App State. He doesn't even need to change his laundry. He keeps his old college colors and everything, becoming a Pirate. It's another pitcher, Jack Hartman. He's got a great high-spin cutter and a developing slider. It looks to me like a great combo to profile as a bullpen arm. Are y'all seeing the same thing?
Yeah, honestly, when you said he didn't have to do his laundry, I had and you said you were right down the road from him. I kind of thought you were going to do his own laundry or something like that. But
I would if you wanted me to.
But yeah, like you said, I think he's a reliever for sure. I think it's definitely a project to kind of work through for the Pirates with this one for sure. There's a lot of swing and misses, but his delivery's a bit rushed. His arm tends to lag a little bit. He's got a lot of talent in there, but the command is just not there right now. It's got a lot of stuff to iron out, but there's some talent. If the Pirates can iron that out, he'll have a career. If not, you're looking at just kind of organizational depth here, in my opinion.
So taking the pitchers, keep on going with the Pirates. They keep doing it. Move to the final pick. They select Logan Hoffman, another small school, this time Northwestern State in Louisiana. So again, I might doubt the competition, but the results are clear. Short season, he had 105 batters faced, 0 earned runs. He did allow a home run after a 2-out error, but the results still, they don't lie. Unless, do they?
I think there's some legitimacy to it. I don't think this guy's a future ace or anything. So he's a smaller guy at 5'10", but he commands his stuff really well. And that tends to be huge on the college circuit, especially in these like mid-major conferences. Hoffman sits kind of 90-91 with his fastball. He's got a good curve that he can locate, and his ability to kind of mix those two pitches along with a changeup have helped him big time at Northwestern State, and before that at Colby Community College out in Kansas. He actually did pitch on the Cape Cod League. He was solid there. He was a reliever at a 3.54 ERA, 27-8 strikeout to walk ratio. So he was solid there in relief. I think if you're going to keep him in the starting rotation, the stuff might be a little light. He's probably a number 4, number 5 at best. You think the hope is, especially since he's only 5'10", you might want to just kind of move him to the bullpen, let his stuff tick up a little bit, and become a fastball curveball guy that he can locate. The good news is he's pretty young for the class. He doesn't turn 21 until November, so he's really the age of a sophomore. So that's an upside. That's a plus there.
Okay. Well, I like the young guy. That should always be that the small advantage to help him develop a little bit. So let's call it on the Pirates draft. A ton of pitching potential, which, the Pirates have needed in recent years. So let's move across the border into the Buckeye State. The Cincinnati Reds had the 12th pick, selecting Austin Hendrick, prep outfielder from, of course, back in Pirates country, West Allegheny High School just outside of Pittsburgh. People are going to fall in love with his power and speed and defense, but he does have a lot of swing and miss. He's got a really aggressive swing. It is fun to watch, but is it going to be effective?
I definitely think it'll be effective. Like, obviously, there is definitely some concerns. He's been working a lot on those concerns with his lower half. There's a ton of moving parts. Over the last year, he's made a lot of strides in it. There's just a lot of coiling. The coiling is not bad, but it's just a lot of moving parts with his legs, his knees, his hands, just really everything. But like I said, the last year or so, he's been kind of cleaning it up, help that hit tool a little bit. That's really the problem. The power's always going to be there. This guy's got some of the best bat speed on the prep class. Like I said, Nick Gonzalez probably has one of the best in the entire draft, but Hendrick's right up there with him. And on the prep circuit, he's probably one of the best. It's pretty fun to watch, and his swing is literally just geared to try to drive the ball in the gap, try to pull the ball deep, and see what he can do. But yeah, the hit tool I probably have settling around a 40. If he can improve those improve that movement, probably looking at maybe a 45 at best, but I don't think it'll really probably get there. Probably settling around a 40, but he has good power. It's probably going to be 60, potential 70 power, but it's probably going to settle around 60 as well. He'll have good OBP numbers. He's going to strike out, but the OBP will offset it. There's, like I said, there's some hand movement to get rid of, but it's worked. And in that ballpark, left-handed power plays really well.
Yeah, I think we're definitely talking about some of the best bat speed in the class, as Jake mentioned. He generates his power. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he generates his power just from ridiculous bat speed from the left side. He just explodes on the ball, and it's really natural as well. The hit tool, I have hope for his hit tool. I think he's going to hit in pro ball, and I think he's going to hit in the major leagues. He might not hit 300, but I think his swing is quick enough. He's a mature enough hitter that I think he'll be able to tap that power consistently. I like the pick too. I think we're looking at a 30-plus home run bat with solid on-base percentages, which absolutely plays. And I think this is one of the few guys where the shutdown was actually good for him, because he was playing up against the Pittsburgh area high school competition, which isn't that great. He'd already established himself, so there was really only nowhere to go for him but down. So the shutdown was really good for Hendrick, and this is a special bat, at least in terms of that ferocious bat speed.
Yeah, I think he hits enough to tap into that power. The power's going to play in that ballpark so well. He's just going to mash balls out of the park. There are concerns about the hit tool, but I think he hits enough. To be an average hitter probably in the big leagues. You guys hit on a ton of great things. Not much else to say, but I do like the pick. I do like the power, and especially how it will play in Great American Ballpark.
So you guys are high on Hendrick, probably rightfully so. Maybe the hit's going to come around, but everything else is there. So what do you think about the next guy, pitcher Christian Roa? He doesn't seem to wow me. Decent stuff, not electric, but all of his pitches seem to be developing well enough. Maybe like a high floor guy, Tanner Burns maybe?
Yeah, I think he's definitely a decent little pitcher. He's got a 4-pitch mix, easy repeatable delivery, consistently finds the arm slot and release point. His fastball touches is 96, sits in about 92, 94. Doesn't have a ton of movement, but gets a little bit of arm center onto it. The curveball is more of a downer with 11-5 action. It's a decent little pitch. It's not his best in my opinion, but I like the changeup a lot. I think it's a good little pitch for him, probably his best, considering the fastball doesn't get a ton of movement. The changeup really nice for him, gets his fastball playing up a little bit. The slider's probably his least effective pitch. It's like a low weight he's offering. It's just not too great. It's more just used against the righties to kind of give them something else to look at. I think he has a good chance to sit as another third or fourth starter. About getting about the third time through the order, his stuff will play, but after that, he doesn't have, like I said, enough stuff to kind of blow people away. But he's got enough that's kind of sit in the middle end of a rotation and have success.
I think instead of Tanner Burns, I'd compare him to Cade Cavalli. I think we're talking another guy where
That's much better.
I think we're talking another guy where the whole is kind of less than the sum of the parts at this point, in that he hasn't had great results in college. But the stuff is there. He's got above average stuff across the board, especially if that slider comes along. And he also throws strikes, so it's kind of interesting to see how his stuff is played down in college, despite he's got swing and miss stuff. Not blow you away, but he's got swing and miss stuff, and he's got a full arsenal and he throws strikes. But I think the command is kind of a question here. The control is ahead of the commands. You want him to hit his spots a little bit better. There's not too much deception, kind of like Cavalli. So you might want to have him tinker with some two-seamers or something to kind of keep hitters off balance. But again, as I said with Cavalli, you're buying the future product. You're not buying the right now, and you're not buying what he's done in the past. And he hasn't been great at Texas A&M, but he has looked great. So the hope is that the Reds can then put that all together for him.
Yeah, like you said, he can locate three of his 4 pitches, and the only one is not being that slider. So I think that's where he kind of has his success. And then, like you said, I think he just locate over command right now. If he can kind of touch and fix on that, he has a lot of potential.
Okay, well, we'll see how he develops. The Reds move on next to another prep bat, but this time from behind the plate. Jackson Miller from the Tampa area. I know high schoolers are hard to scout, but this kid has scouting reports that range from 50 hit 35 power to 40 hit 55 power. And those are vastly different profiles. What do we have with Miller? Good athlete in defense? As a high school catcher, that seems risky.
So high school catchers are always risky. And I think there's always going to be a little bit of dichotomy in the scouting reports, especially with the high school hitters. But high school catchers are always risky, and I personally don't like them for that reason. I like to avoid them in the top, 50 to 70 picks. They scare me a little bit. But I'm going to flip the script. I'm actually a fan of Miller. I really like this kid. I think he's the most well-rounded high school catcher in the class. He's a better defender than Tyler Soderstrom and Kevin Parada. He's a better hitter than Drew Romo. He doesn't have any wow tools, but it's a kid with a really nice kind of baseline of ability all across the board. He's got a really nice loose swing from the left side. He's got some loft, and I think you can project some power into there as well. He taps it a little bit now. I think he's going to tap more as he fills out and as he gets stronger, because I think the swing is conducive to power, but he makes consistent contact as well. He's not like a plus hitter or anything. I think it's more of a 50 hit tool. He makes the consistent contact to be able to tap that power later down the line. Defensively, again, it's a pretty smooth operation back there. Could use a little refinement around the edges, but he looks like a natural. And a lot of scouts thought this was the kind of guy that, here it's the broken record, with a full season, he could continue to trend up. But I think this guy's especially one where that was the case. And being a left-handed hitter, I think, helps him as well. I don't know. I just like this guy. I get a good feeling about him. I think he's going to hit. I think he's going to be like a solid all-around player at the major league level, which for a catcher is really hard to find.
Okay.
Yeah, Miller's fun. He's athletic. Like I said, I think he has a better chance to get catcher than Soderstrom. I don't even honestly know how long Soderstrom will stick there. They'll give him a shot, but he's definitely going to be better off of there. But yeah, Miller's fun. He's, like you said, a lot of stuff to like with him. The power is, like you said, still growing into it. He doesn't really show a ton of pull power right now. His extension's a little lacking, which it can be fixed. It's not fixable. His lower half could get a little more into it. It could grow into about a 50, maybe a 55 power if he really works on it, but he's more just like a little hit over power right now, which is totally fine. I like the profile overall. I definitely think he'll stick at catcher. It's not going to be any Gold Glove type of catcher, but definitely has a chance to stick there. And yeah, really athletic again. I like the pick a lot. Athletic catchers are always fun. They're always risky, as Zach touched on, out of the high school ranks, but if they have that athleticism, they always got a shot.
That's interesting. We finally have a high school catcher that we like. That's it's something that we've had this conversation before. We don't like them before, so that's good. We'll see how he develops as well. But I do want to move on to the next pick. The Reds select pitcher Bryce Bonin out of Texas Tech. 97-mile-an-hour fastball with a plus slider, and I'm pretty sure that's it. It seems like we have another bullpen arm because these two pitch guys always seem to fall to the pin. Is there more, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, he's not bad. He's interesting kind of case. He transferred from Arkansas because they wanted to convert him to a reliever, and he just wasn't having it. He told them, all right, I'm leaving for Texas Tech, and I'm going to go be a starter. So he did. And here we are. He got drafted as a starter. They're going to give him a shot. But he has a crossfire delivery, gives him a lot of good deception with his pitches. But he's rather inconsistent when he was in the rotation. He might be more of a bullpen arm, but they're going to give him a shot. His fastball's 93, 95, reaches about 97. Like I said, good deception and horizontal run on it. The slider, in my opinion, is his best pitch. Grades at about a 55, pushing 60 grades. Comes about 84, 86. Pairs it with his fastball really well. Tunnels it pretty decently. The curveball is his third pitch. It's a bit loopy at times, but grades about a 40, and he's got a fourth pitch as well, changeup, which I would give him about a 40 grade too, but it's nothing to really be too excited about. It's more just like his third, fourth pitches is really just a fastball slider, which just has an extra few pitches on the side. But like I said, he's got a chance to stick with those four pitch mix if he can kind of refine one of them at least, get about the league average, and he'll have a shot.
Yeah, I think on the surface, Bonin looks like a reliever. I mean, you've got that crossfire delivery. He comes from way out towards third base with his release point. The fastball and the slider, they both kind of come diagonally across the plate because of that wide arm angle. But I mean, it's a good power fastball, low to mid 90s up to 97. Really great slider, especially from that arm angle. It just kind of dives across the plate. So he looks like a reliever just on the surface because the command is mediocre at best. He hasn't had great results. Texas Tech put him in the rotation like he asked, and then he hasn't been good in the rotation. I think the Reds run him out as a starter, and they should, just because it's a special arm. It's a really loose, really kind of fluid arm, even if he doesn't execute all that well at times. But I think eventually he probably will fall back to the bullpen just because he struggles to throw strikes a big time. But it's a really exciting arm, and I could see him doing really good things in the bullpen just as that fastball slider guy.
Well, I hope he does start because I'd be the first to say I was wrong. I see him as a reliever, but hey, if he does start, that's wonderful. If he goes to the pen, even better for him. As long as he helps them win, that's all that matters there. And I'll be the first to eat my words. But I am curious about the next pick of the Reds. They bounce back to the high school ranks and grab outfielder Mac Wainwright. Wainwright's an absolutely gifted athlete. He's got strength and speed and arm and defense, but he's missing the hit. You know how I feel about the hit tool. That you need it. You absolutely need it. Is he going to be able to develop it?
Yeah, so this is a little bit of an off-the-radar pick. He wasn't ranked on the BA 500, but the Reds are really high on this guy. They think they got the steal of the draft here with Mac Wainwright. He's going to be a projection play. There's going to be a lot of refinement that needs to go on. But, he's a high schooler, and not only is that he's young for the class, he doesn't turn 18 until August, so they got plenty of time to develop this kid. He's from right in their backyard. He's from Cleveland, so it's their next door neighbor. It's an Ohio guy, and I know how Ohioans love their Ohio. It's a really loose swing with some power projection in there because he's such a strong kid. You could see him tapping into plus power down the line. And it's not so much, I think, that he can't hit. It's just that it's unproven. Injuries have kept him out of some of the showcase events. He hasn't been seen a lot. So it's not that he can't hit. It's just that we're not entirely sure. So that's why the Reds are like, oh, he absolutely can hit. The Reds will be the first to tell you this guy can hit. I don't know what you're talking about. But the rest of us, should be a little bit skeptical. It's a high-risk pick, absolutely, but they're hoping to mold him into an impact hitter down the line. And they think they got the steal of the draft with this. I'm interested to see how it turns out because, he hasn't been seen much, so I haven't seen him that much.
I mean, if that hit tool turns around, this is an absolute stud.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to the 5th round. The Reds take the electric pitcher out of Notre Dame, Joe Boyle. Boyle is 6'7" and averages 98 miles an hour on his fastball. Not tops out, but averages. You mix in the slider and he's great. But like all the best flamethrowers out there, he can't spot it. I know the stuff is tantalizing. It's similar to Wainwright's athletic tools. But will he be able to pick up his command enough to actually play?
I don't know. I mean, he definitely looks like a bullpen risk with no control. But, man, that arm is exciting to watch. I mean, it's a true 80-grade fastball. He regularly reaches 100, tops out at 102 to 103. I mean, the massive frame just intimidates hitters at 6'7". He was projected as a top 3-round pick out of high school, but instead opted for Notre Dame. He's got some of the best arm strength in the class. He also overpowers with a slider that reaches the upper 80s. Control, like you said, is a major issue. It's well below average right now. And even in this shortened season, college season that we had, he walked 13 batters in 8 innings. He does have potential. He's got to really work on refining that command. But right now, man, it looks like he's just a flamethrower that can't hit his targets at all. But there is some potential there. When you can throw that hard, I always got to like that.
And I just thought about something with that. He's 6'7", which means he has extension. He's throwing the ball 6 inches, 7 inches closer to the plate than most people. So that 102 is probably looking like 103.5.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He gets on you quick. I mean, especially with that 102. His command is definitely a problem. Even the control, he's just kind of whipping the ball up there wherever it goes. I'd be kind of scared, to be honest, I was hitting. But he threw 62 innings and in the college ranks and had 110 strikeouts, that's really great, but had 75 strikeouts or 75 walks. So that's over a walk per inning. So that's not too great. But yeah, tons of Ks, tons of walks, tons of miles per hour, tons of velo, tons of fun, tons of projects. So we'll see how it goes.
That's the best way I can describe the Reds draft is tons of fun, tons of projects.
Yeah, to be honest, if I'd be scared if he were throwing 102 down the middle every time just because 102 sounds scary. I think this is a guy you really want to do well, obviously because of the 2-pitch mix. You got plus fastball, plus to plus slider, but he's also apparently he's very analytically inclined. He's very into the pitch metrics and he works really, really hard to get better. So it's kind of disappointing to see him continue to struggle to find the zone the way he has. But, you know, if you can get him to, right now he's probably sitting at 30, 35 command. If you can get him to like, not even like 40, if you can get him to 40 command, you've got a big league arm. If he can just kind of be around the zone, that's the kind of stuff that hitters will swing and miss at. And again, that we're talking youth here. He's young for the class. He won't turn 21 until August, so that's a plus. But the command is just scary in terms of how bad it is, especially if you're a hitter.
Yeah, and as you said, he's really analytically inclined, so it's good to see the Reds picked him up, and they probably know that about him, and they picked up, probably half the driveline team this offseason, last 2 years with Bauer coming to the team, and also that's a team that's really focused on all that stuff with all the TrackMan, Rapsodo, metrics, and all that, trying to improve your spin rate, pitch to your best abilities in a way. So he found the right team. So if he's going to be successful, it's probably going to be with the Reds. So it's good to see they picked him up in the 5th round. Nothing much to lose here.
Hometown guy as well. He's he grew up just outside of Louisville, so I guess that counts as hometown for Cincinnati. It's pretty close.
Close enough.
Zach, he needs your glasses from Wild Thing. He has to get that control.
He can have them. I'm not pitching too much anymore.
Are you willing to give him those?
He can have them. I think I'm a 5'8" lefty in the 70s. I don't think I need them.
Hey, some teams out there that needs that, but there is a lot of potential with that Reds draft. But let's move over to the next team in the NL Central, the former lovable losers, the Chicago Cubs, picking 16th overall. They do grab the best shortstop in the draft, Ed Howard. I don't want to speak the role of a scout, but from what I've seen, he looks like he's 50, 55, 60 grade on pretty much everything. Is he going to be an all-around serviceable and solid, or one of the best in the league?
Yeah, I don't think you're looking at a guy that has standout tools. Ceiling's definitely not as high as like your Bobby Witts or CJ Abrams from last year. But like you said, he is the best shortstop in this class. Super, just across the board, above average at everything. A few plus tools in there. He has a good approach at the plate, makes repeatable hard contact, and he really makes impressive bat speed, and his frame is projectable. So I think he only continues to add power and strength to his bat. He's a smooth defender, and he definitely sticks at the position. Unlike a lot of these guys, I think he's the one that will stick at shortstop long term. He's a plus defender there. He's got an above average arm, high baseball IQ. And so all around, he's not going to be flashy, but he is going to be good at everything that he does. So I like the pick a lot. Lot to offer there to the Cubs.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe him, he's just a baseball player. This kid is kind of what you look for in a baseball player. He just does a little bit of everything well. You know, good hitter, good fielder, plays the game, high energy, good feel for the game, especially for a high school player. He has a high baseball IQ, as you said. He's just a baseball player. That's it.
That's it. All right. Yeah, pretty much just a fun little story on Ed Howard. He was back in the day, like probably 6 or so years ago, he was on the Little League World Series team from Chicago that won the championship, and then Theo Epstein gave him a little speech. Ed Howard was like I said, a part of the team listening at their high school. Theo said,
Jackie Robinson West.
There you go. Yeah, that team. At their high school or college, whenever they're draft eligible, the Cubs will be ready watching. And apparently Ed Howard wasn't going to let them pass him up. So fun little story there. But yeah, Ed Howard's a fun player. He's really smooth. At shortstop, like I said, he's definitely going to stick there. He's got a lot of room to grow into, too. He's 6'2", 185, so some room to grow into. So it's definitely some power down the line. I like the pick a lot. The Cubs have someone fun to play with.
Nice. It looks like the Cubs absolutely killed it with that Howard pick. And if he develops the way that we're saying, and he just maintains above average and everything, the Cubs will certainly be happy, and Theo Epstein will certainly be happy. But what about the next guy, Burl Caraway, the pitcher out of Dallas Baptist? I took one look at the stats, and sure, it's a wow on the K rates. He gets 16 strikeouts per 9. You couple that with a pretty lofty walk rate. It's like 5.5 per 9. It gets less appetizing. You couple that with the fact that he's likely a pure reliever. I'm starting to not like this as much. He has lights out stuff, but these types of relievers are becoming a dime a dozen nowadays. Like we were talking about earlier, 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but no control. What makes him special?
He's fun. Like me and Zach touched on before, we're not really big fans of taking the reliever this early, but I think it just has to do with the 5 round draft. People are just, if they wanted a guy, they felt he might not drop, and Carraway was definitely the best reliever in the draft, just strict reliever. So the Cubs wanted him, I guess, and apparently they had probably a plan with wanting to get left-handed relievers or left-handed power arms in the system or something, as we'll get to in a few picks as well. But yeah, he's fun. He's, like you said, a lot of Ks, a lot of walks, deception in his delivery, a ton of deception. Kind of creates some command issues, but he's got a quick delivery, and arm can kind of lag a little bit behind. But the fastball is fun. It works up in the zone a ton. Had the second highest spin rate in the class, 2708 RPMs, and the curveball was just as impressive. It was upper 70s and had a 2883. It was ranked 8th, but still really impressive. But the 2-pitch misses really consistently wipe out stuff. It's just if he can command it or not, but he still gets some ugly swings out of the zone with it and all. But I'm not a huge fan of the reliever this early, but like I said, he's really strong. He should move relatively quickly as long as he can keep some command in. He'll always have some command issues. He probably won't ever be a closer due to it, but he reminded me a lot of right when I saw him, just of another guy who just debuted last year for the Rays. He pitched at Dallas Baptist as well, was Colin Poche. They're a little different. Poche uses his fastball like 90% of the time or something wild, but they both are pretty similar pitchers. They remind me a lot of them.
Yeah, I think what makes Carraway special is that fastball curveball combination from the left side. I mean, you're up to 98 with the fastball plus curveball. And then again, he's got that kind of it factor when it comes to pitching late in games. He wants the ball in the 9th inning. He's going to go right after hitters. He doesn't really know where the ball's going all the time, but he's going to do his best to go right after hitters. It's a real closer bulldog mentality, and that's kind of what sets him apart. That said, I don't like college relievers this early. They are kind of a dime a dozen. Even when you got the ones that stand out at first, kind of like Carraway, I think you could find them later in the draft. You're getting the best one now, but the guys later I think could be every bit as good. So I'm not a fan of relievers this early in the draft either.
All of the relievers in the league right now, I would say 80% of them, maybe 90% of them were turned from starters that just couldn't make it. So I'm not a big fan of drafting relievers in general, but draft the starter, see if he can stick. If not, shorten up his arsenal and move on.
Well, we're not a fan of drafting relievers, but if you're a fan of being wildly entertained by watching a physical Adonis just being gifted on the baseball field, you're going to like this next guy, Jordan Nwogu out of Michigan. He's built like a defensive end because he was one, and now he just crushes the ball. He has elite speed to go with it. He has a hard time adjusting to curve and change ups, but I do hope this guy pans out because he looks like he's going to be the most fun player to watch.
Yeah, he's, like you said, he's really exciting to watch. I would slow a little bit on the elite speed, but he's definitely showing 60, pushing 70 grade speed. But he's like I said, he's big. He's 6'3", 235. Shows great bat to ball skills, ability to kind of barrel the ball up consistently. Even when he's fooled, he kind of keep his hands back and show ability to kind of hit the ball hard. Just really physical in the box, in the outfield, just all around. He has just a lot of big power. He can kind of show up in game as well. Decent little hit tool to work with. Could be about a 45-50 as well. It's like he's got a nice offensive profile. He struggles a little bit to pick up breaking balls and keep his weight on the front side a little bit. But like I said earlier, he still finds a way to kind of barrel up balls. Just gets a little antsy in the box, which he'll kind of battle through in the minors. But he's got a really high ceiling. Just the way this whole draft was kind of going for the Cubs, just a lot of high risk, high reward kind of players. But of the group, I definitely like Nwogu. Obviously, he's not going to be at Howard status, but of these other picks, I'm a big fan of Nwogu and think he has the best chance to kind of stick. He's not going to be a center fielder, but as an offensive kind of profile left fielder, should be pretty good.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's had a really strong track record at Michigan. He's hit all 3 years while he was there. And while the Big Ten isn't the same as the other Power Fives, it's still good competition. He helped carry them out to the National Championship Series against Vanderbilt last year. But I mean, you got the power, you got the speed. He's a big, athletic dude, just a beast. And I think he might be just, some a little bit of a swing mechanical change away from kind of pulling it all together, which is weird to say because he's already hitting really well. And he's got a high baseball IQ. He's got a high IQ in general. He's actually on a scholarship for computer engineering, not baseball, but computer engineering at Michigan. Genius dude. And I think if he keeps his hands pretty close to his body in his swing, it's kind of a tight swing. He needs to get a little bit more extension, kind of just smooth it out. But he's got the feel for hitting, the feel for the game to really pull it all together. You can almost call this maybe a little bit of a Garrett Mitchell light. It's a fun guy to watch for sure.
Well, I do like the good athlete. It's incredibly fun to watch, but I'm really excited about this next guy. Remember when I told you I was hyped about the Joe Boyle 98-mile-an-hour fastball? Well, the Cubs draft Luke Little, who hits 105. Chapman's record could easily fall with Little getting some work and strength, but does he, like the other people we spoke of, does he have enough command?
So this is a fascinating one, and it's not just because he throws 105. A lot of it's because he throws 105, but so you got a 6'8" lefty that can get up to 105, and that was in one bullpen where he was sitting mostly, 101 to 103 in that bullpen, casually. In games when he throws longer stints, he's more mid to upper 90s, but the problem here has been the command. It was bottom of the scale, kind of even worse than Joe Boyle earlier in his career in San Jack. But this year, he took a step forward with it, and it was a small sample, but he was throwing more strikes this year, and his delivery looked a little bit smoother. I think beforehand, he was really kind of a lumbering guy. He looked like he hadn't even remotely grown into his body. He didn't really have the coordination. He was just kind of this big lumbering guy that released the ball right in front of your face in the upper 90s and now 105. He comes from like a big crossfire delivery, so he was almost letting go of the ball from first base, and the ball's got life on it too. So we're talking about an 80 grade fastball, not just because of the velocity, but because it's moving and it's at an angle and it's impossible to square up. This year, he looks like he ironed out that delivery a little bit. I mean, it still needs significant work, but he's moving in the right direction, and he's really young. He doesn't turn 20 until August. So he's like the age of kind of like an old college freshman. So I think there's a ton of upside here. You got to work on the slider as well. It's kind of an inconsistent pitch, but he flashes some good ones. I don't know. I think the Cubs, if he just grows into his body a little bit more, because he's so young as well, this could be, I think he's still stuck in the bullpen, but this could be an elite reliever. I'm really excited to see where he goes.
There's a video that's currently up on the prospectsworldwide.com website about the Cubs draft analysis, and it compares Luke Little's 105-mile-an-hour fastball to Josh Stomont's 104-mile-an-hour fastball, and it breaks down the mechanics, and it is actually a lot of fun to look at because you can just see how perfectly in tune they are, obviously command being an issue, but just in tune to get the most torque out of their body. I recommend that watch. But so I want to move on to their final pick. It was pretty interesting to me. He wasn't ranked on the MLB pipeline, but he managed to get 2.5 times his slot bonus, netting $900,000 when the recommended value was $367. He's Cohen Moreno. He's had a big fastball growth in recent years. He's now sitting at 93. At 6'2", 170, he should fill out a little bit more to give him more velo. But how does the rest of his game look?
Yeah, it's interesting. The value that he got. He was relatively unknown prior to the draft. A high schooler out of North Carolina, committed to Eastern Carolina University. Think he could be a nice riser, though, in the system. As the more I've looked at him, the more I like him. You mentioned he has a good fastball, and he's shown good progression on that throughout high school. Definitely shown a lot of improvement. He complements that fastball with a solid slurve as well. And again, not a whole lot out there on him, but it seems like what I've seen, there is stuff to like. And obviously, they liked him a lot in order to give him that extra bonus money in that round. I mean, obviously, you probably have to sign him, given he's a high school kid. But I do think there is stuff to like here. Good guy. I think he could develop well.
Yeah, Moreno wasn't completely unknown. Baseball America had him at 128, so I saw him there, and he was kind of on my watch list a little bit before the draft. This is a guy that I think is going to take a big step forward in pro ball, just because he looks like a pitcher. He's got that loose delivery, good frame, 6'2". He's around 90 with his fastball right now, but he's been up to 94, and the velocity is trending up. He's been above 90 more than he's been below it recently. The slurve he's got needs to add a little bit of power. It's kind of a loopy pitch right now, but it's got good depth. And I think overall there's just a lot to work with right here. And I think the Cubs would love to just kind of get their hands on him and mold him into a great pitcher that he has the ability to be. I mean, he's got a ways to go, especially for someone who's a little older for the class. I think he turns 19 in August or September. It's just the kind of guy that could take a big leap forward in pro ball. And the Cubs are banking on that, and the Cubs see that.
Yeah, I really like this draft for them. Everyone seems to have some real major league potential, like high end. They can do some real damage in the majors. But I do have questions on the Brewers pick. They're next. Not as many questions on the first guy, though. Garrett Mitchell was one of the best talents in the draft. A huge bat, and he can do everything. Some say he fell because of diabetes, but that just seems odd to me because diabetes didn't stop Adam Duvall or Mark Lowe or Jay Cutler. Type 1 is manageable, and Mitchell seems like a true talent. What do y'all see in him?
First off, there will be absolutely zero Garrett Mitchell slander on this podcast. I love this prospect. I think he's easy top 10 talent. I think the Brewers have to be ecstatic to get him at number 20. Personally, I think I especially watched ESPN talk a lot about the diabetes when he was drafted, and they didn't talk much about him as a player, which really annoyed me because, he's a diabetic, big deal. This kid's a fantastic player. And I say that with a little bit of bias. My fiance is diabetic, and she's a diabetic athlete. She kicks ass on the equestrian circuit. It's not going to be an issue going forward. I don't think it will. Anyways, Garrett Mitchell, the player, is extremely fun to watch. We're talking top of the scale speed. It's an 80 grade, 75 to 80 grade run tool. He changes games on the bases and in the outfield, but the speed, raw power is in batting practice. It's parking lot raw power. He'll drive balls out of the stadium in batting practice. In games, it doesn't play as much. He's more of a line drive bat in games, but he's also got a plus hit tool. So he's consistently making contact, consistently spraying the ball around the field, extra base hits, doubles, triples. He puts the ball in the gap and just runs wild. I think if you can get a little more loft into Mitchell's swing, it's definitely a line drive swing right now. You get a little bit more loft, help him tap that power, which I think he can. I mean, you're talking about, a similar player to somebody already on the Brewers right now in Christian Yelich, except that Mitchell's faster. He's that good, I think. I'm shocked that he fell to 20. I think it was more teams seeing kind of the diabetes and going, no team had him as their number 20 player, but I think every team only has one pick, and they saw him and they're like, we're not going to spend our one pick on him. We're not going to spend our one pick. But the Brewers have to be ecstatic. I think you're talking all-star to MVP upside if everything clicks and he can tap that power in games, because it is plus raw power. I mean, it's 45 to 50 game power, but it is plus raw power, plus hit tool, plus run tool, plus arm as well. I mean, this kid's just tooled up. He's a fantastic baseball player. I'm very excited to see him play.
You talk about his game power being less than his raw. It goes into I saw a quote on him recently. He said that he tries to hit line drives and they accidentally turn into home runs. So that's all he's trying to do is just like get that BABIP high, hit line drives. And yeah, sure, they turn into home runs and that's even better.
I think the Brewers are going to want him to, try for a little, not, go all out for home runs, but try to add a little bit of loft.
Just think we've got to look past the diabetes thing. I think that's been all the talk. This kid's a top 10 player in the class, no doubt about it. The fact that he slipped this far was unbelievable. I mean, Zach, you hit everything that I could say. And we know he's a big 5-category potential across the board. I mean, this kid's got it all. And so we just need to put this conversation to rest because diabetes hasn't stopped him at any point of his playing career so far. So I don't see why it would now or moving forward. He's a potential steal of the draft here. Fantastic pick by the Brewers. Like you said, they've got to be ecstatic they got him here.
Yeah, I'm on board with you guys. There's been a few things with Mitchell that I've liked to see. Like every year, he's been working on his kind of tapping into the raw power. Lately, I've been seeing him kind of work on it a lot. Like pre-pitch, he kind of coils in his front side, his hips, like kind of just literally trying to gear towards it, being able to kind of turn on pitches more a little bit. So he knows he needs to fix it. He knows it's the biggest part of his game that's really lacking, as Zach touched on. Everything is plus to plus. So the comparison I have, I don't know if he's going to be Christian Yelich. That's pretty lofty. But the player I compare him to, which would also be pretty lofty if this player stayed healthy, he would have pretty much been Christian Yelich, is Grady Sizemore. Just if he can tap into that raw power, he has potential to beat him. But like I said, the raw power has a chance. And the Brewers are really, really good at helping players with their launch angle development, as you can see with Christian Yelich when he came over, and Keston Hiura kind of helped tap into a lot of raw power that he had. So there's a lot of players that they help, and I think Mitchell's going to be the next one.
Well, if they get pre-injury Grady Sizemore, they are happy with that.
Yeah, if they get Sizemore, Yelich, anyone, they're happy. Regardless, the kid's going to be a stud with his anything, even doesn't have the power.
Absolutely.
And all three of Mitchell, Hiura, and Yelich are LA boys.
Hey.
West Coasters. So we are high on Mitchell. Absolutely. But like I said, I do have question marks on the Brewers draft, and they start right here. Freddie Zamora from Miami. I'm not sure what to make of him. The talent does seem to be there, but he got suspended for Miami season, and then a knee injury happened. And for a shortstop, I imagine that knee injury could be just devastating. What's odd is these events happen at the same time. Literally, the press briefing was February 12th. Zamora suspended to begin season. February 13th, Zamora out for season with ACL injury. What do we do with Zamora? How do we view him as a player?
Yeah, it's a strange progression of events that led him up to this draft. He's a glove first type of player. He's shown the ability to be a plus defender, and he's got a good arm. I mean, he showed improvement at the plate during his college career, but he is a contact first type of hitter. He's not going to hit for a ton of power. He doesn't strike out much. It's an interesting makeup overall, but I'm honestly just not sure if the bat plays at the next level. I think he needs to show a more consistent hit tool and really grow into that power if he wants to play at the next level. I mean, make it up past AA, AAA, you know. But the glove is solid. The fielding ability is good, and he has a good arm. But I don't know. I'm just not sold on the pick here. You guys got anything?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sold on him either. I don't think I'm quite so pessimistic as you are. I think he's a very similar player. I think you take out the work ethic and the injury. I think he's a very similar player to Alika Williams, the Rays competitive balance pick. Kind of a guy who's always been a sound approach, line drive kind of bat. He hit for more impact as a sophomore, so he's starting to tap a little bit of power, get it up from a 35 maybe to a 40-45. But of course, he's glove first. He can make the highlight reel play with anybody. I think he's still working on the routine play, kind of keeping his focus from pitch to pitch. I think there is some nice upside here in a shortstop who can really hit, 10 to 15 homers a year, good on base percentages. That's if he kind of gets Zack together, which, I've never met him, so I don't know what his deal is. I think that's kind of all I got to say on his work ethic. But if the Brewers can pull him together, I think there is some nice upside here. But, this early in the draft, I wasn't a huge fan of the pick. I think there were better players available, but we'll see what happens with Zamora.
Well, the next pick is an infielder, Xavier Warren, and he has a bat. He's able to make steady contact. Power might be limited some, but the average and OBP are certainly going to be high. What's weird, Zach, he's listed as shortstop. He played shortstop at Central Michigan, but I know you said you thought he might catch instead. What's with the positional question marks?
So he was actually drafted as a catcher. The Brewers announced him as a catcher. He caught in high school out in Detroit, in the Detroit area, but when he got to Central Michigan, they needed him at shortstop, so he spent 3 years playing shortstop for the Chippewas. He definitely doesn't stick at shortstop in pro ball. He's more of the tools kind of profile better as second base or third base. But I mean, if you can get him to catch, he's an athletic kid. He's got a high baseball IQ, great feel for the game. If you can stick him back there and kind of help him iron out those kind of rough patches in his game, I think you're talking about the bat profile is fantastically back there. The profile is solid in the infield, but as a catcher, you got yourself a steal. He's a completely professional hitter in the batter's box. And that's both the left and right-handed batter's box. He's a switch hitter. But it's an absolutely pro approach. He hunts his pitch. He works counts. He makes consistent line drive contact. He executes lots of doubles and triples. Not a ton of home run power. He's just not the biggest guy in the world. But he can run into some occasionally. But he's just hit everywhere he's gone. He hit at Central Michigan. He hit on the Cape. And I think you've got kind of a baseline of a utility infielder, but if he can catch, the bat profile's there, he'd be a starting catcher.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. Like you said, the bat's nice. I think he had a little chance to stick a catcher. He played I think there was 5 to 10 games at catcher in college, but like I said, he mostly played shortstop and kind of split time at third base as well in a spot that I think he couldn't end up. It's just I don't think the power is ever going to show up to kind of profile there. But I think he has a decent chance to stick a catcher if they can kind of work on him. It's definitely going to be a project, as we touched on. He hasn't really played too much there in the last couple of years. But I saw some video that was posted on YouTube. It was actually, granted, it was 3-4 years ago when this kid was in high school. But he looked good. He looked good behind the plate. He's added some little bit of weight now, which is fine. He still looks athletic now, but he does as he did back in the day. Pop time that he had back then was workouts, but it was a 1.9. Nothing crazy. Definitely solid. I think he has some good actions behind there. The throws kind of sailed on him a little bit. He kind of rushes his throws, gets a little sidearm on him, but when he gets on top, he has some pretty good throws on there, gets him on target, and he has pretty good velocity on him. I mean, I like the profile. If you can get him to stick a catcher, it's pretty fun. I mean, the switch hitting catchers are always interesting and fun, and if you have any defensive ability back there, it's always worth a shot.
Let's actually move on to the next guy I'm curious on, but it's outfielder Joey Weimer. He's just another guy I can't get a handle on. He's an outfielder with patience, power, bat speed, but still limited production. He does throw 98 from the mound, so he could have like a Ramon Laureano type arm in the field. But again, he just doesn't have a hit tool. Does he just need to fix it, slow down this max effort swing he has just to touch the ball? It looks like the rest of the tools are going to play.
I think he does, and this is kind of the exact opposite of Xavier Warren. It's another Michigan native. He grew up just north of Toledo. So it's another Michigan native back-to-back, but he's the exact opposite of Warren. Warren has hit everywhere he's gone with a pro approach. Weimer has not really, or Weimer, I don't know how it's pronounced, has not hit really at all, especially kind of at a mid-major at Cincinnati. He's got a 6'5" kid with really long arms and legs, really noisy setup. He holds the bat really high over his head. He wiggles it around. And then when the pitch comes in, he drops his hands below his back shoulder, has a big leg kick, and kind of explodes towards the ball. It's a really noisy swing, and I think he's trying. It's almost like he's trying too hard. He's just got to calm down. I mean, he's a noisy swing. It's an aggressive approach. He swings at a lot of pitches. He's just got to calm down because the bat speed is legitimate. He's got a really quick bat, and with those long arms and legs and strong athletic frame, I think he could be a plus hitter all around. Just calm down a little bit. You notice if you look at the numbers, he strikes out a lot, but then you look a little closer. He actually, compared to his scouting profile, you'd think he would strike out more than he does, really. I mean, he actually controls his zone fairly well, given everything I just said. So the natural ability is there. I'm bought into this pick. I think if the Brewers can clean him up and just pat him on the back and say, hey, chill out. You're a natural hitter. You can do this without going up there like you're Gary Sheffield. I think they could have a kind of an all-around impact hitter on their hands.
Well, you can't complain about an all-around impact hitter. That is, I mean, getting him in the 4th round, that's elite. So now, with the Brew Crew's last pick, they take Hayden Cantrell, shortstop out of UL Lafayette. I think Cantrell dropped a bit because of his, well, I know he dropped because of his lackluster start to the season. Typically, he was a highly productive batter. He was actually one of 6 D1 players with 25 extra bases and 25 steals. But then he just stunk in the beginning of this season. Is this going to be a case of, John, don't be down on him because it's a small sample size? I know I do that a lot with people in the Cape, but who is this guy? Is this just a small sample size?
I mean, a little bit, yeah. There's obviously some concerns to be with any player, but it's definitely a small sample size. I would say he's definitely has more of a track record than I would say having failure like he showed this season. But definitely had him drop considering the cases and all. But he's fun. He's fun to watch. He's a switch hitter. I have his future hit tool as a potential 55. It definitely has some work to do right now, but his swing's a little bit more fluid from the left side. It still gets the job done from the right side. Some time to develop in the minors will be pretty good for him. He's definitely going to need a few years. Yeah, he kind of profiles as a top order hitter, not going to show too much power. Has a chance to stick a defense, not going to be overpowering there. Just 50 grade average defender at short. Might move over to second base due to the offensive profile and all. Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible pick. As a 5th round pick, you definitely are buying into what you saw before. You're not really buying what he showed you this year, and there's definitely some stuff to like from the previous seasons.
Okay, well, I like that then. So finally, we're going to move on to the last team in the NL Central. And of course, them being the last team, they now have the most picks that we have to go through. The St. Louis Cardinals. First up for the Cards is a high school absolute monster, Jordan Walker. Great power potential, maybe not the greatest fielder. His hit tool is iffy, but I think it's going to be there. Am I optimistic thinking if they just properly control his balance and body control that they're going to make him an absolute batting machine?
I'm a bit higher on the hit tool than most must say. I would say I think it has a chance to grow into a 45 if all kind of clicks. And the Cardinals are pretty decent at developing bats, so I wouldn't put it past them to kind of help him out and stuff. But
I think that's an understatement. The Cardinals are excellent at developing bats.
But I think the power has 60 potential 70 grade stuff. I want to see a little bit more. He's gets a little chase heavy on breaking balls. Got to show a little bit more recognition on those to kind of tap into that 70 grade. And as that 70 grade will show up, I think that 45 hit tool will show up as well. But yeah, just a little development to go. But he's got a ton of potential. I love the pick a lot. There was some signability issues with him a little bit, but I was pretty convinced he would sign. And the Cardinals, they're going to have a good one over there. The defense, it's not the worst at third base. He's got a huge arm. Throws the ball really strong over at third. A little bit flat-footed. Probably will end up seeing a move off of third base as he kind of gets older and all. But he would profile and right fine. Might be a little slow out there, but the big arm, big power, everything kind of profiles that there. If not, is flip over to first base and be a big power threat.
So yeah, Jake, I'm with you on the hit tool. I'm high on it as well, and high relatively speaking. And John, to answer your question you asked at the top, if the Cardinals iron him out, do we think we can bring out this hit tool? I think yes. I mean, first thing you're buying is obviously the huge raw power from a 6'5" frame. Right now, the hit tool is below average. It's kind of 40, 45, but he's got a really sound approach at the plate. He's really good at pitch selection. Got a really high baseball IQ. Scouts have praised his knowledge of the game. I think the only problem with his hit tool right now is more the hand-eye coordination. And that's just a case of, him being 6'5" and barely 18 years old. And he actually hasn't played since he turned 18. So I think he just, kind of like with Luke Little, I think he just needs to grow into his body a little bit more, and we can get to at least a 45 hit, maybe even 50. I could see him getting to a 50 hit tool pretty easily. I'm a big fan of this guy. I think he's going to be kind of a lineup anchor for the Cardinals down the line. I think he'll do great in St. Louis, and Jordan Walker is just a great baseball name as well.
So Walker's got some potential for sure, but let's make way for my future two-way Hall of Famer, my favorite player in this draft. Up next, Mason Wynn. He touches 98 on the gun with a plus curve and possibly a plus changeup. He's a talented shortstop with power and speed. And I know he doesn't have a hit tool, but being a two-way player outweighs my hatred of lacking a hit tool. I trust Wynn, and I trust the Cardinals development staff to make this guy incredible. My soapbox is done. What do you think about him?
So first off, I love him. This is another one of my favorite players in this draft. Second off, I don't think he's going to be a two-way player at the major league level. I'm sorry. He's going to be a two-way player at the start, and I think the Cardinals absolutely should develop him as a two-way player. But I think he's raw enough on both sides of the ball, and he's also a smaller guy. He's like 5'11", skinny guy. I don't think he's going to stick as a two-way player just because he has a lot of development he needs on both sides of the ball. But all that said, I love him. I'll start with the bat. He's got just lightning fast hands in the batter's box that produce like above average raw power from like a small skinny frame just because he whips the bat through the zone so quickly. He might need to, fix kind of his starting position with his hands. He can start pretty low with them, struggle with the pitches up, but they're just so quick. And if you kind of refine those mechanics a little bit, I think you could have a really nice all-around hitter. Also defensively, he should be able to stick a shortstop again with a little more refinement. He's a high energy player. He can kind of overplay things sometimes, but again, he's raw. So you're talking about a shortstop with power and just lightning fast hands at the plate. You move to the mound and he's just as exciting. Lightning fast arm. Again, it's the same guy. His fastball is running up to 98 before. It kind of sits low to mid 90s. Curveball looks like a plus pitch. It's got really sharp bite at times. It can be inconsistent. It can flatten out a little bit, but when he throws his best ones, they look like 65 grade pitches at his best. Good changeup as well. Strike throwing could use a little work. And since he's a smaller guy, there's always going to be questions about whether he can stick in the rotation. But I think just the ability here is so elite. He's one of the best just baseball players in the class. I love this pick. I'm really, really excited to see how he develops. But I think he's got enough to go on both sides of the ball. Kind of with, as a hitter, he needs to work on that hit tool. As a pitcher, he needs to, hone in that command, get more consistent with the secondary stuff. I think he only makes it as a one way, but it's really exciting either way.
Zach, you're no longer invited on this podcast.
Sorry, I only speak the truth.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite picks of the draft. Honestly, I just really like what he has to offer. I don't think he sticks as a two-way player. It's really tough to do, but he's honestly like equally talented, both as a pitcher and as a hitter. When you draw comparisons to Francisco Lindor at shortstop, while also doing what he did on the mound, it's just insane what he has to offer. I don't personally know where he projects out best because he's that good at both of them. But I do think he ends up focusing on one. But again, hard for me to say right now. But I do like this pick a lot. One of my favorites in the draft.
All right, John, here we go. I think it could happen, but there's some skeptics. That's definitely to be sure.
I'm going to go do a parade real quick. I'll be right back.
I don't think he'll ever be a starter by any means, but I think there's definitely a role. And by the time he'll be developed, I think the league will be kind of not more two-way heavy, but there'll definitely be more players, I think, in the role that I'm going to kind of bring up. We've already kind of seen it kind of happening with Michael Lorenzen, but just a guy that can kind of play the field a few times a week, come in 1 or 2 times a week, throw an inning, maybe stay in there for 2-3 innings. He's got the stuff to kind of get through a lineup once, even twice. It's just the long term. The frame won't really probably hold up over a season, but I, like Zach said, they're definitely going to try it. They don't think it's going to happen. I have a lot of faith. They both touched on it. He's got a ton of talent on both sides. It's just, will he post it? Will he continuously tap in it on both sides? I think he can if he limits it, if he doesn't try to stick to a full-time starter role, if he doesn't try to be a full-time kind of shortstop, if he can kind of be that guy that just kind of a Swiss Army knife, more or less. I would see him more useful as Lorenzen is being used. I think the Reds kind of underuse Lorenzen a little bit. I think they definitely need to explore more of him. And I think the Cardinals are probably willing, considering they drafted 2 potential two-way guys. I think they're going to be definitely willing to let Wynn stick as long as possible. But we'll see.
Well, you are the smartest person on this podcast. That's obvious now at this point. But let's move on to their competitive balance pick. The Cardinals draft Markevian Tink Hintz, super young guy, one of the youngest high school seniors in the class. Good movement on his pitches, pretty interesting deception. I've watched some videos. The ball kind of jumps out of his hand before it starts any sort of movement. But he does require a lot of development to reach his max. What's the limit on Hintz?
First, I love the name Tink Hintz, man. Great name. He does have a good feel for his 3-pitch mix. Right now, he's got a plus fastball, and he's got potential above average offerings in his slider and his changeup. He's listed at 6'1", but he honestly looks really small. So I have some concerns about his frame, but like you said, he's still very young. So I do think that he could grow with time. Right now, his fastball sits about 93 to 95 with pretty good sink action to it. And he spins the ball really well. That's what I really like. He spins the ball very efficiently and well. And on his slider, it sits between 76 and 81. And he's improving on his changeup. So he's been working on that feel for the changeup, which I think is really important. And so if he keeps refining these, then there is some potential there. He does need to kind of grow into that frame a little bit because I do think there are some concerns there. But overall, there is some potential, and I do like it.
Yeah, I think you're talking about another really fast arm, really loose, fluid delivery. He also has been working on a curveball as well. He can kind of manipulate between the curveball and the slider just because he's got such great feel to spin the ball. And in addition to that changeup, that's a potential, 4-pitch mix of all above average to plus pitches. I know injuries are a huge question just given his size. I mean, you want to be optimistic and say he's athletic enough to avoid that, especially since the delivery is so fluid. The realist in me is still cautious, but if he's healthy, I mean, you're getting an impact starting pitcher if he can withstand the full workload.
Yeah, I absolutely love this Cardinals draft so far. If he's able to develop properly, he really could do something special. But what's really special is their next pick because it's the other potential two-way guy that Jake was talking about. Alec Burleson from ECU. This guy kind of finessed his way to 9 strikeouts per 9 in college and was a hair under a slash line of 350, 400, 500. It looks like he's probably going to stick at first base since he's a tad slow, and I'll admit he probably won't stick at pitcher. But even if he is just a first baseman, he doesn't really have the power to stick there. I don't understand what he's going to do.
I know I mentioned he would be a possible two-way guy. I know the Cardinals are probably going to give him a shot. I don't really actually see it happening just due to the fact he doesn't have really plus stuff anywhere across the board. Like you said, more or less just finesse his way to it. He really does not stand out anywhere. Maybe the hit tool, if anything. He's not the best athlete. I don't know. I don't think the power is going to translate. He struggles versus lefties a lot, picking up balls, staying back. He's really out in front, rolls over quite often. Lacks speed. Like you said, if he's a first baseman, he's going to lack that power. And at a power position, you're not really probably looking to start him there all the time. And he's at best, he'll be a platoon player. I don't think he's going to hit lefties too well. So this is, in my opinion, there's a lot to improve here. Definitely not the worst player. He's definitely got some stuff to work with, but I don't think he'll be a two-way guy. Definitely going to probably stick to being just a first baseman outfielder, and that could help him tap into some of his power. He's not the smallest guy. He's pretty good size to him, so he's got a chance. I'm just not the biggest fan of this pick.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan either, but the hit tool is a plus tool. He's a 371 hitter over the last 2 seasons. He rarely strikes out, but then he also makes such consistent contact that he rarely walks. So even though he's a 371 hitter since the start of 2019, he's also only got a 408 on base percentage. I don't think the power is going to translate. It didn't really show up on the Cape. I think he could tap it a little bit, maybe as a 10 to 15 home run guy, just because he finds the barrel so consistently, and if he adds a little bit of loft, it might work. But as a first baseman, I don't think he'll hit enough to start. I agree with you. I think he's more of a platoon guy.
Well, so if he's not quite a first baseman, and he's also not quite a pitcher, wouldn't it make sense for them to just push him as a two-way just so he kind of like helps in both roles, doesn't have to be 100% in one role?
Yeah, it might, but I think there's just not quite enough on the mound for him to do that. I mean, he's kind of upper 80s with the fastball. That's just not going to.
I mean, the Orioles were throwing out Steve Wilkerson. I think anyone can pitch if Steve Wilkerson can pitch. Sorry for interrupting you. We'll see. I hope he turns out the way he could, because that's the lefty-righty matchup. Wynn being the righty, Burleson being the lefty. We could do some of those Waxahachie swaps. I like the look of this in the future if he can pan out. But let's move on to the next pick. The Cardinals stay in college and they grab Levi Prater. He's out of Oklahoma. He was actually behind Cavalli and Acker in that rotation, but he still had lights out numbers. Maybe the stuff isn't there. He sits like 92. Honestly, he looks like he's best against lefties. That's a loogie role, but that role is dying with these new rules. What does he have in the future for the Cardinals?
I really, really like this pick. Like you mentioned, he outperformed Cavalli this season. I know it was a shortened season, but I mean, just statistically, he was dominant. He's got great perseverance, great competitiveness. He's a grinder. He works out of jams. He actually lost 2 fingers on his non-throwing hand when he was young in a lawnmower accident. So it just shows you, like, he's a hard worker. He got past that, and he's just shown the ability to make it through anything. His fastball sits low 90s, tops around 93, produces pretty good arm side run. The slider sits around 80. He gets a lot of swing and miss with that, actually due to, like you said, against lefties, he likes to stand on that first base side of the rubber, and he kind of runs it away from the lefties. The changeup sits around 80 with pretty good fade. So there is something to like. Like you said, the stuff probably not as good as Cavalli or others, but he just gets it done. Like, while not being the most flashy, he produces. He perseveres, he gets out of jams. And so I do like this pick a lot and like what he has to offer.
So I do like that pick. Let's move on, though, to the 4th round. The Cardinals draft Ian Bedell, a pitcher out of Missouri. Again, not lights out stuff, but he actually pounds the strike zone with a pretty good array of pitches that can sink, run, break, and it seems to have pretty good command, putting his pitches right where he wants. It seems like a steal in the 4th. I mean, these pitchers aren't sexy, but they can play.
Bedell actually did sign overslide. He signed for a larger bonus than either Burleson or Prater did. So he signed for $800,000. But yeah, I think you're right about Bedell. He's a really interesting arm. He grew up a Cardinals fan. He's from Davenport, Iowa, about 4 hours north of St. Louis, headed to Missouri. So, he's a Cardinal. He's already ready to be a Cardinal. He's a 6'2 righty who kind of sits in the low 90s with his fastball. He's kind of running up towards the mid 90s on the Cape. This spring, he was more closer to the kind of 90 flat. Didn't come out throwing super hard this spring, and that caused him to fall just a little bit. But he's got a good curve, not a plus curve, but a good tight one. A changeup, he's adding a slider, and everything kind of plays up because he's got above average command, but on top of the command, he really attacks hitters, and he really works to control the zone. And especially since his really dominant run through the Cape Cod League, he's controlled the zone really, really well. It's not the hugest ceiling in the world because even though he's 6'2", he's kind of like not quite as skinny as Tink Hence, but he's, kind of that skinnier frame, doesn't project to add a ton of weight. So he's probably more of a, number 3 starter at best, more of a number 4 maybe. You got to love the way he just kind of throws his 4 pitches with conviction, hits his spots, and goes right after hitters. And he's performed at a high level since the start of his sophomore year at Missouri, both in Missouri and on the Cape.
Yeah, he's a nice pitcher. He throws from a 3/4 arm slot, mixes his pitches really well, commands them as well. He's got a ton of pitches: fastball, 2-seam, 4-seam, cutter, changeup, curveball, and he commands, like I said, commands them all pretty well. Fastball has a lot of sink to it, depending kind of if he uses the 2-seam or the 4-seam, but the cutter uses it really well versus lefties. Changeup has nice fade in the lower 80s. Comes with the same slot as his changeup, and it's really nice. It just pairs really well with all his kind of fastball combinations. And then he's got a curveball. It's high 70s, low 80s. He's got a chance. Well, we'll see.
So he does seem like he's going to fit in with the Cardinals well there. Let's end the NL Central draft with the dirtbag out of Long Beach State, home of Troy Tulowitzki, Evan Longoria, Garrett Hampson, just MLB player after MLB player. The Cardinals drafted an underslot in L.J. Jones IV. I know he was an underslot, but he can smoke the ball. Is Jones going to be the next great Major League dirtbag?
I certainly think he could. This is kind of my sleeper of this draft class. I'm sorry to steal him from you, Jake. I know he's one of your Southern California guys, but I think he's a real big time sleeper because he hit well as a freshman at Long Beach State. But then in like the very beginning of his sophomore year, Jack Leftwich, who's a draft eligible pitcher at Florida who is returning to school, he broke his hand with a pitch and he missed pretty much his entire sophomore season. And he came back as a junior and was off to a hot start. But because he hasn't played a ton and he hasn't been seen a ton, he wasn't on a lot of radars. I think it could be a steal. I mean, this is a guy who's really, really strong, controls the zone really, really well. And this year he was starting to translate that strength into some game power. I think he's a guy that's going to continue to get better, and I think he's going to get better quickly. I think if he had been seen more, I think we'd be talking about him in the top 100 picks without being under slot. It's a really, really broad offensive skill set that I think he's just starting to tap into. I really like the swing. He generates a lot of leverage on top of his strength. This is the sleeper of the draft, in my opinion.
Well, I think the Cardinals overall had an excellent draft. And guys, I got to tell you, it's time to breathe. We are done with the NL Central, and we will push on westward. We'll hit the AL West next. I know there will be plenty to say about the likes of Emerson Hancock, Reed Detmers and company. The West is exciting for sure. But before we say goodbye to the Central, I forgot to do this last time. As you tell everyone where to find you on social media and say your goodbyes, also tell me your favorite pick from the NL Central draft. Jake?
I'll go with one of the local kids. I had to choose between Jared Jones or Nwolu for the Cubs, but I'll go with Jared Jones. I'm a big fan of him. Like I said, I wanted to get out and see him this year. He's got electric stuff. He's just fun to watch. Like everything I see of him is just fun. I caught him last year, which he was still great, but I wanted to see what he had this year and see all the improvements and all. But yeah, he's fun to watch. He's definitely one of my guys I'm looking at, one of my favorite prep pitchers of the draft, and excited to see how he turns out.
And where can people find you on social media?
At J Tillinghast, JTILLING27, and then you can follow us at Prospects Worldwide at Prospects World W.
Right. What about you, Zach?
You can find me at ZackMatt4 on Twitter, ZackMatt4. There are a bunch of first-round picks that I love in this draft, so I technically can't pick Nick Gonzalez or Garrett Mitchell. I think Mason Wynn would be the easy one, just because he's the two-way guy, but I really, really love his ability on both sides of the ball. So I'll go with Wynn, not just because he's a two-way guy, but because I think he's a special player on top of that.
I'm mad at you because you obviously knew that was mine and you took that. But let's go ahead and go with Chris. Chris, what do you think? You can take mine as well.
Yeah, it was definitely Mason Wynn. So took mine also. My homer pick will be Carmen Majitsky, though, from my Gamecock fandom. So love that pick. You can find me on Twitter at RotoClegg, CLEGG.
And as always, I'm Jon Giles. You can find me on Twitter at PumaRevive. That's PUMAREVIVED. My guy in this draft was Mason Wynn, the Texan Ohtani himself, but I will move it over to Jack Hartman because apparently I'm the one doing his laundry. So I'll be following Jack Hartman's career very intently. But guys, that's everything. The NL Central is in the books, and that'll do it. Make sure to go to prospectsworldwide.com for all of our scouting reports and articles. Those top 30 lists will be coming out little by little, so stay tuned for those. And as always, make sure to give us that 5-star review. You've listened to us long enough now. We're family, and families give 5s. So until next time, I'm Jon Giles, and this is Prospects Worldwide.